Look at the exterior of a modern Canadian high-rise. Hundreds of identical glass balconies stacked on top of each other, clean, uniform, and entirely empty. Now compare that to the older, triplex back alleys of Montreal. Here, balconies and yards are functional extensions of the home. Bed sheets and shirts catch the breeze on sprawling clotheslines. It is often assumed that Canadians avoid outdoor drying because of the winter, but for 5 months of the year, cities like Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver experience warm, dry, breezy summers. Scientifically speaking, it is the optimal environment for zero-emission clothes drying. Yet across millions of suburban homes and urban apartments, the clotheslines are missing. This absence is the result of systemic legal restriction. If you hang a wet shirt over a balcony railing in one of these towers, you are likely violating a building code. Roughly 90% of condo corporations in Canada actively prohibit residents from line drying their laundry. In a country that promotes environmental responsibility, local building authorities are overriding a free, sustainable behavior through strictly enforced corporate rules. These restrictions are codified in strata bylaws and property covenants. These legally binding agreements dictate exactly what a resident can and cannot do with the outward-facing portions of their property. Within the fine print of these documents, clotheslines are categorized alongside garbage and debris. The wording classifies hanging laundry as an unsightly display, a form of visual pollution that building boards claim lowers the aesthetic standard of the neighborhood. Building managers enforce these rules through active patrols and formal warnings. A resident caught drying a towel in the sun faces immediate, compounding monetary fines, sometimes reaching hundreds of dollars if the item is not removed. Some municipal governments have scaled these rules up to the city level. In Mississauga, City Council passed explicit spatial restrictions on backyard clotheslines after 2 residents submitted a formal letter characterizing their neighbor's laundry drying conduct as blatant and disturbing. These micro-level aesthetic regulations force millions of households into a mandatory reliance on high-draw electrical appliances, prioritizing property value optics over functional sustainability. The classification of laundry as unsightly is a relic of the post-war era. The 1950s and 60s brought a boom in suburban sprawl, where tightly controlled, uniform housing developments became the North American ideal. Inside these homes, the mechanical clothes dryer was marketed as a status symbol. It was pitched as relief from manual housework and a marker of middle-class mobility. Owning a dryer signaled that a household had achieved a specific level of financial success. This marketing recoded the outdoor clothesline as a negative marker. It signaled to neighbors that a family could not afford modern appliances, associating the practice with poverty or the transition of recent immigrants. Developers and early homeowner associations institutionalized this subjective class prejudice within the formal language of the law. They wrote anti-clothesline covenants directly into the foundational deeds of new subdivisions to protect theoretical property values from those associations. Modern urban developments continue to enforce this 70-year-old classist prejudice, simply because it is wrapped in modern legal terminology. That mid-century aesthetic standard carries a tangible modern-day penalty. By banning the clothesline, condo boards mandate the constant operation of the electric dryer. The average electric clothes dryer consumes approximately 900 kilowatt-hours of electricity per household every single year. This chart outlines total residential electricity consumption. The dryer accounts for 6 to 9% of a home's energy draw, exceeded only by the refrigerator. And running a single load uses the same power as 10 light bulbs burning continuously for an entire day. Aesthetic compliance extracts a hidden, localized financial penalty that directly inflates a household's weekly cost of living. Scaling that household penalty across millions of units transforms an individual financial burden into a systemic strain on provincial electrical grids. Data from BC Hydro projects the potential relief if apartment and condo dwellers were permitted to air dry their clothes. This map visualizes a conservative model, calculating the impact if only half of apartment dwellers line-dried clothes for just 1/4 of the year. Under those strict limits, the grid would save 60 million kilowatt-hours annually, power preserved by a simple nylon string and the sun. These localized strata bylaws actively sabotage macro-level provincial energy reduction targets, transforming a neighborhood nuisance into a systemic barrier.
Because local condo boards are deeply invested in maintaining these aesthetic rules, residents have organized the Right to Dry movement, a push for top-down legislative intervention. In 2008, the Ontario government officially voided all restrictive anti-clothesline covenants for ground-level homes. They followed this in 2009 with the Green Energy Act, ensuring outdoor clotheslines could be used even if a condo corporation prohibited them. These provincial directives were robust enough that subsequent administrations maintained them. When Premier Doug Ford repealed the Green Energy Act in 2018, the explicit legal right to override corporate condo rules regarding clotheslines was preserved and moved to the Electricity Act. Nova Scotia successfully followed Ontario's lead. However, in British Columbia, the province does not prohibit buildings from enforcing these bans. Municipalities still empower individual strata councils to declare laundry unsightly and issue fines. Overcoming decades of entrenched classist zoning requires macro-level legislative intervention to strip aesthetic authority away from local boards. The current dynamic is irrational. Heavily taxed, eco-conscious populations are barred from utilizing a zero-cost, zero-emission resource positioned right outside their windows. Ending strata clothesline bans serves as one of the most effective, immediately deployable policy levers available for residential carbon reduction. The clothesline is a localized mechanism for systemic grid load reduction. It is an infrastructure tool rather than an aesthetic blight. If an intervention as simple as drying a shirt in the sun carries a $200 fine, we must examine what other environmental solutions are currently being blocked by outdated standards of suburban respectability. A sustainable urban future requires functional infrastructure. We cannot build it if we allow our cities to remain constrained